Petty revenge. Ex-wife likes to play divorce games. So my ex-wife has decided this month to play games because my kids graduate high school on the 31st. I've waited over a decade to pull off this final revenge on her, and people in neighboring states are going to hear her. See, my ex, when we divorced, didn't hand over anything she was supposed to within 30 days of signing the paperwork. So under the Minnesota law, I have the right without going to court. Filing claims on every item in small claims court up to the maximum $3,500. So this month, just before I have my kids' graduation dinner, I'm going to slap her with 15 small claims court filings for over $200K. You can imagine the rage she will have when she finds out she cannot sell her home when she retires. Payback's a bitch, and I know just how she is going to react. She will come to my house screaming, and I'll have her hauled away as a raving lunatic, and I'll put a restraining order on her, which I couldn't do for years. Plus, it will affect her job. Blessed silence, finally. Petty revenge. You took my seats for the Minecraft movie. Okay. My 7-year-old spent a full year excited to see the Minecraft movie. He knew it was to come out April 4th, but I bought tickets for an early showing on Thursday the 3rd. The plan was for me and his sisters to pull him out of school a few minutes early and surprise him. It worked beautifully until we got to our seats. A week out, I purchased 5 tickets for right in the middle of the F row. I choose this row every time in our theater because it's the first in a section. This means my kids won't be kicking anyone's seat or talking right in their ear and don't have to scooch past to get to the bathroom. When we got to the theater, 15 minutes early, I found the entire row was taken up by a rather large family. There were also a lot of them. I told the matriarch I thought they were in my seats, double-checked my receipt for theater and time, but she maintained that she also had bought these seats. I walked out and grabbed a 17-year-old usher I wasn't very confident in the authority of. I told him, I don't mind sitting in the G row, I just don't want someone else to come in, having reserved those G seats, and make me the interloper. The woman fumbled with her phone a little bit, hemmed and hawed, but nothing came of it. Keep in mind, this was a Thursday afternoon matinee, so there weren't a ton of people filing into the theater. My kids could tell something was going on. In the interest of modeling conflict resolution and saving the moment, I decide we take the G row and see what happens. Cue petty revenge light bulb, and it doesn't have anything to do with chicken jockeys. Tut me out, it was only us and them in the theater. So I let my kids have a blast at this movie. I didn't shush them. I didn't care if they kicked the seats of the F row, put their feet up. Hell, I would have let them throw a little popcorn, but they didn't. Every time an F row interloper sighed and glared backward, all I did was shrug. It was glorious. After the movie, those people left behind all their popcorn buckets and trash, like the scum they were. Petty revenge. I'm not replacing my TV on purpose. So basically, my mom left me a house when she moved away. She moved back and we agreed to have her move back into the house to save money for a future move. However, she took over the living room every night, which is the only place I can relax after my children go to bed. My son, 2.5-yo, sleeps in our room, so I can't watch TV in there after he's asleep. I had previously asked if she could just let me have a night or two to myself, to relax in silence since my office is out there as well, or just to watch a movie. My problem was solved. My son threw a toy car at the TV. Not on purpose, he throws things when he gets excited, and it just happened to hit the TV and it left a huge mark on it. The thing is, I told her I can't afford to replace it. I actually can replace it, but the busted bit just doesn't bother me, so I'm not replacing it on purpose. My mom doesn't want to watch TV on it now and just watches TV in her own room. She has a 60-inch TV in there and just refused to use it before, so it's not like I'm being cruel. Is it petty? Maybe, but I see it as a win-win LMAO. Petty revenge. You want to help yourself to my drugs? Good luck. Let me start by saying that I'm not doing drugs, nor have I ever done so. Anyway, this story happened years ago when I was in uni, but it still gives me the chuckles. During university, I had the chance to do a few months at another university. It was far enough away that commuting wasn't an option, so the program put me in touch with a student who were transferring the other way, and we basically agreed to switch living situations. We cleared it with per respective roommates, and everyone was fine with it. When I arrived, I pretty quickly found out I didn't like one of the people living there. Let's go with Karen for her. The feeling was mutual, so I basically kept myself busy since it was only a few months. She was the type who got into everyone's business, especially if they didn't want her to. Now here is a fun fact about me that will be important later. I love licorice. The stronger, the better. It's a niche taste. Some years before all this happened, I figured out how to get my fix without eating a ton of candy. By buying ammonium chloride powder, also known as salmiak. It's also used to make bread crispy, so you can find it in specialized baking stores and online. It is strong shot, however, and it is mildly acidic. I usually eat what sticks to the tip of my finger. That's the scale to have in mind. Ammonium chloride is a fine, odorless white powder, and I kept my rations in small 10G plastic bags. If you think you have guessed where this is going, you're probably right. I know Karen saw me eat some once in the beginning of my stay because she asked about it, and I told her it was candy and she wouldn't like it. Fast forward, there are about 2 weeks left, and I come back to the place and notice an ambulance outside. Sure enough, the door to the apartment is open and 2 paramedics are trying to help Karen stop a nosebleed of horrifying proportions. As soon as she saw me, she started screaming that it was my fault. Paramedics ask me if I know anything about what is going on, because Karen claimed it came out of the blue. So I asked her specifically if she went into my room, found and took my bag of candy, and then tried to sniff it. She hesitantly admits, "It's not Coke, you idiot. It's salmiak," I tell her, and specify the chemical name for the paramedics. In the end, she had to go to the ER because they weren't sure she hadn't burned a hole in her nasal wall with that stunt. She hadn't, but according to my exchange buddy, she couldn't smell anything for almost 6 months afterwards, and still blamed me. Petty revenge. Drivers are dumb. I drive. Every day. I have a pronounced logo on my truck with the phone number to my business on it. EDGAF. Every single day, I see people driving while I'm driving and doing stupid shit, like running red lights, tailgating for no reason, not yielding for people, kids in crosswalks, etc. I can spit really far. Been practicing my entire life. If I see someone do something stupid or illegal while driving, I will do my best to get next to them and spit a hawker on their vehicle. But I'll do it so they don't see me do it, and they'll have to deal with it later. I'll also do it in parking lots if you're parked like an asshole. So beware, and I encourage others to subtly join me in my crusade. Petty revenge. Boss uses wrong name over a year despite being corrected many times. Should we even bother anymore? Boss has been calling my coworker Katie as Kayla for over a year now. We've corrected him so many times, but his own imagination trumps over the truth. When it comes time for Katie's promotion, he actually wrote the promotion letter and corporate announcement as Kayla. Petty revenge time. Katie signed all the documents as Kayla, and payroll had to inform my boss that such a person doesn't exist. Katie told payroll that my boss has been insisting on this new name this whole year. The whole company knows and is extremely embarrassing. I don't know if he learned his lesson though. Petty revenge. Hotel screwed me over, so I actively discouraged tourists from booking there. I had a bad experience with a particular hotel that is part of a larger chain. They lost my reservation, couldn't give me the room I had reserved, gave me a lesser room, charged my credit card twice, and at the previous rate when the rate on that day was cheaper. I managed to get one of the charges dropped, but I am still salty about having to overpay for a crappy room. And their corporate customer service was even worse. I work in a tourist-adjacent position, and at least once a week, I'm asked for recommendations about local accommodations. We have a list, and I make a point to tell them not to book at the one I loathe. I have no intention of ever stopping. Yes, it's petty, and yes, it gives me great satisfaction every time. Petty revenge. Boomer bullied me. Now her inbox is being bullied. Ha ha ha. I was a young senior carer in a care home, and I met the most outrageously rude and nasty woman who should have retired years ago. She was snappy, cruel, and thought she was the bee's knees. She would talk over my handovers, she would ignore me when I spoke to her, she would leave things a mess for me to tidy, and I had enough. After a stressful shift dealing with an unexpected death, she came on shift and said the most heinous thing I've heard. I quit. I never went back, and I've not seen her since. A few days after I quit, I was thinking about everything she'd done, and that she was the main reason that I quit. So I thought of the most irritating things I could do to inconvenience her life without her knowing it's me. I settled on signing her email address and her phone number up for a load of crap. I signed her up for anti-bullying seminars, new window quotes, gastric bypass surgery quotes, hair extension quotes. She's practically bald. An advert selling puppies, am I? A bad person test. Guess what score she had sent to her email address? 10 ways to become a better person, and all the spam stuff I could think of. It made me cackle for days. I still smile when I think about it. Ha 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 ha. Petty revenge. So we've paid your rent, have we? I was renting a 6-bed house with 8 others for 2 years. We were all in our 20s, earning good money and partying hard. The landlord didn't want to deal with us individually, so it was decided that one person had to be responsible for paying rent for us all. The person who paid the rent, Dave, also paid the initial deposit. Dave had rich parents, so he always had spare money to help out, and everyone agreed that he was a great bloke. Dave promised to pay the rent for the last month for us all if we cleaned the place up $600 when the contract ended. The house wasn't trashed, but needed a bit of deep cleaning, decorating, and a few repairs to get the deposit back. It was 6 months' rent of $3,600, which was a lot in the 1980s, so we agreed. Unfortunately for Dave, he was away when the landlord came to do an initial inspection to let us know what needed to happen for the deposit to be returned, and in conversation, it turned out that the rent was being split 8 ways, not 9. Dave had been living there rent-free for 2 years without us knowing. We had a massive party over a long weekend, drinks were spilled, and a food fight broke out on more than one occasion. We didn't put anything out for the dustman for 2 weeks, cleaned nothing, and all moved out the day before Dave got back, 1 day before handover. Surprisingly, he managed to get $400 of the deposit back and tried to make us pay the outstanding money we owed him. He gave up after threats of police involvement if he tried to pursue it. I found out years later that our actions totally wrecked his plan to put a deposit down on the house he was saving up our money for. Petty revenge. Dad proves anything your kid can do, mine can do better. In this case, my dad did the thing that had me smug. Petty smiling for a bit, on both our behalfs, keeping some details vague to keep this as anonymous as possible. So stepmom SM has been bitter since her daughter had been job hunting. And I told her that my employers don't even consider looking at a resume if you don't have a degree. They literally have software screening applications to filter out ones that don't list them. Since then, there was some bitterness about it, the type of "your job can't be that hard" undertone about things. My degree is diverse, and an accumulation of job experience in different industries has led me to where I am, and therefore I do a lot of freelance work for people in various capacities. Although, since I now have work taking 40 hours of my week, I've cut back, only assisting as a small favor for some loyal people who've supported me in the past. I belong to a few community groups, as does my family, as we live in the same area. The petty revenge came when I'm scrolling by some posts, and I see SM's post, advertising her daughter's freelance design business. She has no experience in design. The post is bad. Really, really bad. Repetition of the same word in various bubbles, really bad slogan, random clashing fonts, color scheme clashing with clashing font outlines. And the post dimensions, not suitable for the platform it is posted to. Then the next post, an ad for my dad's business. Clean, modern, efficient writing for advertisement standards. Cohesive color and font schemes. Minimalistic even. An advert so pretty, Meghan Markle might print it, stick a white label over the company name, and add some honey and Ziploc bags with name tags to the price list, calling it elevated or something. Posted by my dad. I made it the night before. I was really proud of it too. I didn't even know about SM's daughter's business. Dad just asked and I made it. I play coy and say nothing. He plays coy and says nothing. But boy, the atmosphere be thick in that house. 'Cause he knows that she knows that I know. That we all know. My work spoke for itself, and her daughter's work. Wails. And since Dad's post, not a word about how what I do is not that hard. Petty revenge. Revenge of a brother-in-law. My brother-in-law is annoying and comes off at times as condescending, which I think is due to being insecure, so I hold my tongue often. A while back, my wife and I visited her sister and him for a long weekend. While he was at work, police officer, she complained about all these chores he hasn't done, and kids' furniture and toys not assembled, etc. My wife offered for me to take care of some of it, which I gladly jumped on. The furniture and toys took me under an hour. I'm a woodworker that makes furniture, LL. And of course I had to comment on his anemic collection of useless tools. After that, I went into their garage and broke down and tied up an almost packed garage of cardboard boxes. Noticed some kitchen cabinet doors were misaligned. those got adjusted too, and for the icing on the cake it snowed a few days prior to us arriving. He neglected to shovel. So I shoveled, even cleaning up the hard-packed snow ice in the driveway from him, driving over it for a few days. For the rest of the weekend I was a rock star, and he had to hear it from his wife that everything he procrastinated on for months took me half a day. I pick and choose my battles wisely with my brother-in-law, as we're both in it for the long term, so my strategy has always been subtle revenge. Petty revenge. You want a girly calendar at work? We want to dress those women. Back in the late 80s, I was working at a government research facility. We had one technician colleague who had a girly calendar on the wall of his office. Nothing hugely graphic, just tits and covered crotches. In those days, that sort of thing didn't warrant a report to HR. He was married with kids and annoyingly sleazy, though. One day I was thinking of the paper dolls I had as a kid, that we would dress in paper clothes and had a brainwave. While he was on lunch, I and the other girls he annoyed dressed his calendar girls in paper cutout clothes. We designed each to fit the pose. The pièce de résistance was making a pregnancy bump dress on the girl who was demurely looking down at her folded hands covering her crotch. I think he got the hint, because the clothes stayed. Petty revenge. Just dandy. My young dog is a herding breed, and as such, she crisscrosses us constantly on walks. She also never stops moving. The other day, while on a walk with my husband, she briefly touched a neighbor's grass on the eminent domain portion, maybe a couple feet off the road, and was off the grass in a split second. That neighbor berated him and then posted about it on social media, claiming that she and her neighbors have all been talking about it. That's probably true, because a few years ago I ultimately had to call the cops on her neighbor across the street for chasing me down the street, coming onto my property screaming, banging on my door, and wouldn't leave. She stopped after the visit from the cops. So apparently she's enjoined the neighbors to harass me instead. So I had my attorney send a cease and desist letter, but I feel like that's not enough for the years of harassment. A handful of neighbors joined in on the discussion on social media, saying dogs should be kept in their own yards. They're worried about their pretty little lawns, which, by the way, my dog does not potty on, literally just steps on or sniffs. Well, we have a big field behind our house with dandelions and have collected a jar full of dandelion seed. Won't it be a shame a few weeks from now when their perfect lawns are suddenly covered in dandelions? Petty revenge. Petty revenge on a thrift store weirdo. I am a pretty avid thrift store shopper. I thought I had seen it all. I will talk to anyone, and I am also a freak magnet. So there is always something. I wear plus-sized clothing, which always has a smaller and more limited selection to choose from. While looking through shirts, a woman was clearly grumpy that I was where she wanted to be looking. She kept getting right in my personal space and kept moving my shopping cart aggressively. I walked through a few more aisles and started looking at pants. Lo and behold, my new best friend shows up and begins doing the same thing. This time, as soon as I pass over a pair of pants, she keeps ripping them out of my hands while I move them down the rack. After about 4 pairs, I look at her and say, boy, this is weird. She does it 2 more times and I am over it. I grab the rest of the pants that are in the size we are both looking for in my cart. Every single pair. I didn't care what they looked like or even if they were in the right place. There were about 15 pairs left. I had a 50% off coupon, loyalty points, and this thrift store is actually reasonably priced, so it cost me less than $30. I sorted them at home and redonated the ones I didn't want. One of my proudest petty moments. Petty revenge. Want to be a dick? Great, we'll embarrass you. I'm not proud of this, but gosh, did it work. I used to run a very large team at a very well-known entity publishing articles. I managed the writers, the QC fact-checkers, and the editors. Everyone generally worked really well together. There was one writer, however, who was an unbelievable prima donna. To be very fair, this writer generally did decent work, but could be a sloppy writer, and was also a truly horrible person to everyone, berating and trying to belittle anyone that dared question the writer's work. And even the best writer in the world benefits from a good editor. Someone who's going to read what you actually write. It's really, really hard to check your own writing. You read it as you meant to write it. I spoke to the writer directly numerous times about the appalling behavior. After about the 4th time, I made it clear that team players got priority. Bullies got sent to the back of the line and reported to HR. About 3 days later, the writer submits an article for checking. The initial editor goes back to clarify some things and gets stomped on. Hard. I go to the editor. I'll take this one. I put it on my desk at the back of the pile. 30 minutes later, I see the writer yelling at the initial editor. Sorry, Mr. Thami. Metro is handling it. Writer takes one step over to my desk, stops, and goes back to their desk. I finish the pile of work, except the writer's piece, timing it just to coincide with a senior MGMT meeting. 2 hours have now gone by before I start on the piece. I send it back to the writer asking for clarification. I start work on another piece in the interim. Writer resubmits. I finally start on it again, then send it back again, asking for clarification in the next sentence. I start work on another piece in the interim. Writer resubmits. And, yep, I send it back again, asking for clarification in the next sentence. Of course, I'm CCing the writer's entire team each time. Each time the team gets to see the writer try to explain what they were trying to say. This lasted most of the afternoon, as I went over that piece, with a fine-tooth comb, requesting clarification for literally every word in the story, showing in painstaking detail why what they had written didn't work. The writer got the hint, and while the writer was never exactly a sunbeam to work with, we never had to deal with childish blow-ups again. If memory serves, it was originally painstaking, but modern writing generally leaves out the hyphen. Even editors need editors. Petty revenge. I went beyond and above to prove to his GF that he is scum. I know what I did was crazy, but I had an abundance of free time then, and I wanted justice. Backstory: IF was going through a very hard breakup. I was with my ex from before online dating and social media blew up. I was in uncharted waters. Prince Charming came in from my very large workplace, 5,000-ish workers. He wanted to be there for me, and he was hot. I fell for his love bombing. Before the first real date with the new guy, he disappeared. Blocked me on FB. We didn't get in a fight or anything, so it was odd. Used a friend's Facebook to see his account. His girlfriend tagged him in a post. He blocked me so I wouldn't see it. I ended up talking to the girlfriend. He was not nice to me for outing him, and that was it. Half a year passes and he wants me again. He starts messaging me again, trying to act like a brand new guy. On his social media, he appears single, and he said they broke up. He lied. She saw that we followed each other and confronted me. I was honest with her. Let her know nothing happened, but he was trying. He lost his shit on me and said lots of very unkind things. A half a year later, I hear they are still dating, and he's still cheating. Work gossip doesn't disappoint at such a large workplace. I created a fake Insta. I start building it up with followers of hers and his, posting pics with captions that lead back to him, building this Insta for months. When the time was right and the girlfriend posted a picture in his bedroom, I commented from the fake account that the pic is in my boyfriend's bedroom. She messaged me. I sent her screenshots that I photoshopped between us. I like to think I saved this woman. He still tries to message me every once in a while, not knowing it was me that finally took him down. Petty revenge. Destroyed my boss's career. TLDR at bottom. A few years back, I got hired as a supervisor for a local government. I was to help supervise about 10 employees. Above me was a manager. He was a terrible leader and would often yell at people, make slurs, give impossible tasks or deadlines. On my third day in, he yelled at me to learn how to do my effing job in front of the employees. He made snide remarks to other employees that he was going to terminate me on probation. He demanded that I keep a communication log with every task he assigns me and updates it as I complete them. He also chastised me my first weekend for not having any questions emailed to him by the end of the week. He told me he expects me to send 3 questions every week until I'm off probation. The next week, I sent him 3 questions as required, and he replied back to look up the answers myself. He was out to get me. He would give a task, then another task, then ask me why I didn't get the first one done. I also found out that he rode the old supervisor that way until he got enough dirt on him to terminate him. I decided it was war. I kept a log of every perceived policy violation, broken rule, inappropriate comment, and people who witnessed it. I also engaged other supervisors and employees from other departments. After 28 days of employment, I was ready to quit. I kept a resignation letter in my car, and that gave me the power I needed to press on. After 28 days, I filed a formal complaint with HR. At that time, I convinced the other supervisor to do the same. After that, several employees filed complaints, and a group complaint was filed. HR investigated the complaints, and the manager was placed on administrative leave. The investigation concluded that the manager did violate numerous policies, created a hostile work environment, and he ended up resigning. Since then, he has been burning bridges at every employer 3 so far and went from a manager of 15 employees and a great pension, making $95K a year, to a low-level laborer employee making about $25 an hour in a hole-in-the-wall facility. To be fair, he created his own problems. I just helped HR see it. TLDR boss messed with me. I decided to take him on and won. He went from $95K a year manager to $50K a year laborer. Petty revenge. Dear boss, wanna see how much I really do for you? Shortly after graduating college 2000, I took a 20% pay cut from my blue big box store ASST-MGR job to manage a rundown strip mall, chain fancy card and gift store or FCGS store, because I wanted a challenge and wasn't being treated well in the boys club at the Big Blue. You may have heard about the multiple class action lawsuits for crappy pay and discrimination, but that's a story for another day. The FCGS owner was a woman and very nice, so I was excited to be treated with more respect. Wound up being salary on a 50-hour-a-week job. I was yelled at for ordering wrapping paper gift bags tissue because the walls were bare. I was yelled at for an hour-long distance phone call that cost $5 when my friend was having a meltdown over an unplanned pregnancy. I offered to pay, but they wouldn't let me so they could teach me a lesson. What? At 3 months, they offered me another bigger, brand-new store because I did such a good job on the one I was running. Things were great there. I worked less hours, customers and staff were happier. A few months into that, they wanted me to take over the second highest profit store in the chain of 12. The catch was I had to do both. No biggie. The store I was currently in ran beautifully with the awesome employees I hired. I asked for a 50% raise and was told I had to prove myself for a month. Friends, I fell for it. After redoing the layout, cleaning top to bottom, actually organizing the storage room. Remember, this is peak porcelain statue time. So lots of tiny boxes and still no raise. They asked me to train this woman right out of college on store operations. She and I became fast friends and we started hanging out after work. We started talking. She said she was supposed to take over the big store in which I was currently proving myself. The owner never told me this and didn't tell her I didn't know. I thought she would take over a new location. Remember, I'm running all the operations for 2 high-profit stores and continually increasing sales. She was brand new, no experience. I had 6 years' experience in retail management. Her degree was in English. Mine was in business marketing, and best of all, she was making 5K more than me and the most of any of the managers. Excuse me. Here's the petty part. I saw the error of my ways and devised a plan. I talked to all of my employees in both stores, 15 people, and let them know I was planning on leaving and what the owner had done. You know the kind of people who work at FCGSs, kind, supportive, caring. This was too much for them too. 2 weeks later, the new manager and I went to the main office, met with the owner and turned in our immediate resignations. And the immediate resignations of all staff, but 3 single moms who couldn't quit immediately. She was livid. She yelled and cursed while we snickered. Within 3 months, the original store closed. A year after our resignations, the second and third stores closed. That was pretty gratifying. I think my friend and I may have skipped like children out of the office that day. I definitely know we hit the bar and took ourselves out for a nice dinner. Fast forward 25 years later, I'm still friends and co-workers in an entirely different field with one of the 2 main office workers that was there that day. She has given me the full details and the repercussions of that day. These stories still fill me with joy and pride. TLDR, boss disrespects manager and loses 14 of their business within a year, or boss plays FAFO and loses. Petty revenge. So you think I'm in your way? I'll make sure of it. Happened at Costco yesterday. As always, Costco is busy with everyone trying to pick up whatever on their way home from work. The usual carts in the way, people stopping abruptly to look at things, etc. I pick up a few things in produce. There's a woman with her cart behind her, and she's basically taking up the entire space by the grapes as she's making her selection while talking on the phone. I wait. She finally selects a container of grapes, puts it in her cart and moves the cart. I walk in front of the display, look at 4 containers before selecting one, and as I turn my back to put it in my cart, I hear "Geez, some bitch pushed in front of me to get grapes. What's wrong with people? No manners." to the person she's talking with on the phone. To be clear, I waited for her to finish and move her cart. I turned around with a WTF, is that about face, and she looked me dead in the eye and mouthed, I wasn't talking about you. I'm the only one here, and have been the only one here for 2 minutes. So yes, you are talking about me. She moved down the next aisle, which is where I'm going to. So I decide I've got time and will trail her through the store since we'll be going up and down the exact same aisles anyway. Every single time she stops to get something, I stop right behind her like I'm waiting for that too. If she takes a little too long, I let out a heavy sigh. Continually through the grocery section, I'm doing this. Since I'm a short, middle-aged woman, it's not like I'm a physical threat. More like that annoying fly that won't leave you alone. She ended up shopping quite a bit faster and basically threw things into her cart before getting in line for self-checkout. Hope she'll think twice about talking crap and making things up about strangers because some of us have all the time in the world to annoy you.